Welcome to another video from Guilao60. Today we're going to be talking about Western media versus Chinese media. I'm actually standing just outside a Chinese cemetery in the center of Nanaimo. So you see the Chinese have there's a hint of Chinese everywhere you go in this world, and even in a place like Nanaimo, the Chinese have been around long enough that they have their own Chinese cemetery, which is sort of good, I guess. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video is about Western media versus Chinese media. I've been watching Trump, I know, and Trudeau, I know, and I've been watching Chinese news also, and I see a difference between the two mediums of how it's dealt with in the West and how it's dealt with in the East. See, in the States, for instance, you've got Fox News that is pro-Republican, and you've got NBC and CNN that's pro-Democrat. And what it does is it just divides the country. It divides the way people think, and pits one against the other. Man, I had to walk up that hill. I don't know, man. I gotta get in better shape. Anyway, so what happens is, Trump screams fake news. Well, that's from CNN and NBC. But when Fox tells Trump's side of the story, which is fake news too, I would imagine, or a lot of it is, he's okay with that. In China, they have federal, municipal, and provincial news channels, but they're promoting China as a whole, not Guangxi province against Guangdong province, or Beijing against Shanghai, or the Communist Party against the nationalists, or they what they do is they tell the Chinese side of the news, and it promotes China, and they don't only go after the bad stuff, they go after the good stuff too. So when say I don't know, the new Silk Road initiative and opening up Guangdong or Guangxi province, like Beihai and Fengtiangong as ports to export and import from other Asian countries. They cover stuff like that. They show how the country is growing rather than how divided it is, and they don't belittle other people. They don't start wars. They I don't know, with the Chinese it's a different story. They're trying to promote their country. They're trying to get a foothold in the international stage that has been dominated for the last 100 years by the Europeans, the Americans, the white population, I guess, is what it comes down to. Your white European descendant population. And now it's time for the Chinese to get in there, and their media promotes China as a whole. See, in a way, the media in the West controls the West. It has for a number of years. I can remember back when I was young. Maybe I was more naive, and it was still the same back then. But when I heard the news was just telling what happened rather than telling that news channel's take on what happened. For instance, Trump was in Montana, and he was there assisting a Republican that was looking for votes in a by-election. Okay, so CNN got a hold of this, and instead of them saying the Republican's name, they said Trump is here to help the Democratic, and they said the Democrats' name's opponent. So they wouldn't even say the Republican politician's name on CNN, which is, I think, well, you know, that's taking it to the next level of stupidity. Well, and that's the way the news is here in the West now. You look at Trudeau's liberals in the CBC. The CBC is pro-liberal, funded by the Canadian taxpayer, of course, a pro-liberal news channel, to the point where if the Liberals say it's this way, it is this way, and that's what the CBC will promote. For instance, the Colton Boushie and Stanley killing in Saskatchewan back last year now, and the farmer Stanley, he was acquitted of murder when these young Indigenous kids came on, 20-something kids. I think there was 4 of them, with a loaded rifle and a truck with a flat tire in the front, and they were attempting to steal vehicles and ATVs and stuff. And this farmer came out, and after a scuffle and whatever, one of the kids was shot. And the Trudeau government, the Liberals, oh yeah, this is terrible, this is this and this is that, and my God, Martha, half of the people said, well, geez, if they weren't there stealing stuff, the kid would still be alive. And the other half said, oh, yeah, the justice system is racist and all of this other stuff. Well, the CBC said, well, this guy, he killed this young indigenous man, shot him in the head. But it didn't say anything in CBC that they were there drunk with a loaded rifle trying to steal stuff off of his farm. So they skewer the news to the point that nobody really knows what's right and wrong anymore. So now the media, one side of the media promotes this agenda. One side of the media promotes that agenda, and the people like you and me have to try to distinguish what's right and what's wrong, what's bullshit and what's reality, what has been twisted to the agenda of that either newspaper or radio station or television station or online media, Facebook to Twitter to you name it. It's gotten to the point where nobody really knows now what's fake news and what isn't fake news. So the media actually runs the world. They promote the politicians, and they're responsible for the politicians getting into those positions. And Trump saying, oh, this fake news and all of these bad things that they say about him, yeah, well, he's probably not the nicest guy in the world, but I believe he's telling the truth on the fake news thing, just for the fact that I watched all of these people from coast to coast and all the news channels just trashing Trump out and saying all the worst things about him, and some of them are true and some of them aren't. But that's beside the point. It had nothing to do with reality. It's just their take trying to trash this guy out so he wouldn't become president of the United States. Probably would have been better for Canada if he didn't, but whatever. But you see it all over the West, that it's the news media that makes all of these decisions for the people like you and me, and now we don't know what to believe. So that's a tough one. You see, in China it's different. Sure, do they screw with the news? Do they twist it to their own agenda? Of course they do, but it's different over there because they're twisting it to be a government for China, by China thing. It's not pitting one Chinese person against another Chinese person. It's not pitting one politician against another. What it is it's trying to promote the country as a whole rather than this guy against this guy, or this political party against this political party. That may be because China has a one party policy, but maybe that's a good thing for a place like China, because they are very impressionable people. So if the Chinese government says South Koreans are bad, don't go tour there anymore, Chinese will say, oh, okay, we're not going to do that. So if there was media there that said, oh, these guys are bad, and half the Chinese population fed into that, well, that would be nothing but trouble for China. And at least in the West, the Western people are, I'm not going to say more educated, but they're more worldly. They have a better idea of what the world is like compared to Chinese people, because as everybody knows, China was sort of locked, behind closed doors up until 1978. So they haven't had a lot of years to educate, especially the older Chinese, my age and older. They still live in the old world in China. So when they're told something by their government or by the news, they actually believe everything that they're told, which is something that the Western people, some of them do and some of them don't. I know people that, it said so on the internet, it said so on the news. Well, it's got to be right. Why would they lie to us? I don't know. Think about it. Being a Canadian, I can see the media and how it divides the country. It divides the country in a number of different ways. East against West is one good thing. The transfer payments from the Western provinces to the eastern provinces, where Quebec gets the bulk of it, because the high populations in the eastern provinces, they obviously need more money, and the West has to eat it. Not only that, but by the time the vote gets to the western provinces, it's all over, so we really have no say. And the media picks up on that, and there's a lot of people that feed into the idea that, oh, we should have a Western Canada and an Eastern Canada, two different countries. Well, and that's all through news and newspapers and Facebook, and social media is a big one too. They pit Native against white in Canada, or Native against every other Canadian, I guess. The Indigenous rights, what's right and what's wrong. Being from Saskatchewan, I've seen it up front and personal on a daily basis, and it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about how the media portrays it and divides the country and the way that people think, just for, I guess, ratings or political views or whatever. It's one of those things. In China, if a news channel did something like that, that news channel would not be there, or the people running that news channel would not be there anymore, because dividing the country, or dividing the way people think, or trying to disrupt society in China is a pretty serious offense. And I would imagine that if a news station or a news company in China did something like that, heads would roll. I guarantee you, heads would roll. So why do we allow it here in the West and let it screw with our political system and the way we think and the way we vote and the way we spend money, the way, well, a lot of our lives are determined by how people think, and the medium is the people that are changing people's minds to their own agenda. It's not a good thing, but that's just the way it is. So you can see from east to west, being Chinese to the Western world, Europe, the States, Canada, Australia, places like that. You've been watching the news. You can see how it divides people, and in China, it's not like that. The Chinese media, news channels, newspapers, and everything that they have there dealing with news promotes the country. It promotes trade with other countries. It promotes their friendly countries that deal with them. It promotes their political view, of course, too. But it does it on a whole for the whole country. It doesn't divide the country, and I believe that's probably a better way to go. And that's another video from Guilao60. As always, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button. And that's a not a bad view from a Chinese cemetery in Nanaimo, Canada. Bye now.